Hi folks, welcome to the Candidates Forum. We're here again with Janice Williams, District 4, she's running for School Board District 4, and Carol Cooper, who's running for School Board District 5. Welcome ladies, Carol, Janice, good to be back again. A very interesting subject you have, defining roles. Now, what do you mean by defining roles? Carol, why don't you start?
Well, if we think about how we live our lives with each other in a society, we have a role. And today we're particularly interested in talking about parents' roles and teachers' roles.
Wow.
And community members' roles. And we all play a part in the lives of students. And if we are all trying to play the same role, that doesn't work. If we don't play any role, that doesn't work either, because we're all needed in a student's life.
Makes a lot of sense.
And the parent's role is very, very significant.
Okay. Well, Janice?
I mean, in fact, it's critical.
Absolutely. Sure, to get them started. Well, Janice, sure. I never thought of it this way. So the parents have a role, and certainly the school, but what...
Well, I think what's happening right now in our society is there's a little bit of abdication of parental responsibility with regards to our children in school.
Okay.
Whether intentional or not, it's happening. And our school system is assuming the roles of parental responsibility and child rearing, and it's getting in the way of education.
Okay. Wow. Well, so we want to get the parents more involved. I can remember when I had my two daughters early on, then my son came 20 years later, and I couldn't understand what my son was learning in school. And so I kind of backed off, assuming that the school could do a better job of helping him with his homework. Now, he knew discipline, and I think that could be a problem in today's society. So that has to be addressed by the parents. But I thought, hands off, I'm not going to mess up what the school's teaching them, but I wished I would have been more involved at the time. So I guess some parents do want to be involved. What's stopping them? What can we do to help them?
Well, I don't know that really, when you have a role, it's your job to figure out what the role is, and then how to accomplish it. That's what all of us have to do. And but parents are, I think what you're talking about is the fact that parents are confronted with a real tug for time.
We have a lot of two parents in the family are both working.
Right.
Now it's time to really start following the progress of your child through school. And it's difficult. It's difficult for them to have the time to attend parent-teacher conferences. Sure. You yourself were just saying that you didn't know what your son was learning. I think you couldn't help him. A lot of parents are confronted with this too. They don't understand what it is that the children are learning in school, or they get homework. They can't help with the homework because they don't understand. There's no instructions being sent home from the teachers to tell them how they're supposed to do this.
And let's remember that it isn't the work of the parent to do the child's homework, or to even really know how to do it. But as a parent, we can certainly encourage them. And if we don't know the answers, if we don't even know how to find the answers, we help get them to somebody. Give them ideas about where they can get better help. But we're aware of the obstacles they're facing. As if we're close to our children, we can see the obstacles they're facing and give them ideas and prod them to don't stop until you figure it out. I imagine, don't give up on the task.
I imagine there's resources that the teachers could provide to help the parents understand what the child's going through if the parents don't know. We were talking before about some parents don't even, especially where we are in New Mexico, you'll have Hispanic parents and the children know English, but the parents don't know English so well. So that's got to be a big problem there. I wonder.
Well, I can imagine that would also be a drawback from having that parent actually walk into a school. I can imagine the feeling of intimidation,
Yes.
Once you're in the institution itself and not understanding. Then what happens is you're relying on your child to translate what the
Wow.
teacher's saying for you.
That's
and
gotta
that's
be
putting
tough.
the child in a kind of a precarious
Right.
position
Right.
to where they're kind of on an equal level there with the parent.
Right.
And they need to have those resources there at the school. So I can see having that, but it's important to be able to make an environment that a parent feels comfortable in involving themselves in their child's education and being there.
Okay, okay. You, as school board members, you decide on who the superintendent is, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's a big part of what goes on in the school when the superintendent, if he or she is chosen properly, is going to set guidelines and help with changing. And the first thing you're saying about the show is defining the roles. So if a parent knows what their roles are, and the school makes sure that the parents knows what they're expecting of a child coming into school, that's defining a role. And then the teachers, of course, their role is to educate, and only to educate, not to rear children.
Well, yeah, and we seem to have a little crossover with what's going on in our school systems now where, the teachers are actually having to assume the roles of a medical professional and a diagnostician.
Right.
Gee, your child has ADHD, they need medication. Well, that's not
No.
that teacher's responsibility to give us that information or to be involved in that, but to make those recommendations. There has to be also the social services available and that professionality that is separate from the school that teachers can refer parents and things to, but not really assuming that role themselves.
And
Right.
I think for the most part, I really think that it is orderly. As a rule, there's somebody diagnoses a difficulty, and usually that's brought about by a parent and a teacher observing that something's not quite right, and so they do have evaluations made to see what the difficulty might be, and then call in the correct professional. I think that exists, sometimes I have a friend who feels like it takes a long time to get those get those professionals on board and the diagnostics done in a timely fashion. But as we, if parents are performing their role, if everything works together so that parents can do what they're supposed to do, they will observe difficulties early in the child's life, and the sooner it's diagnosed, the better the outcome of treating it is going to be. It's going to be long-lasting and effective.
To me, it seems effective, cost-effective, time-effective for a parent to be involved, and especially in the beginning stages when a child is expected to have a certain responsibility of civility going into school, because if they don't, and the parents just want to toss the kids into school and say, well, you take care of it, then the teachers are going to be making decisions that the parents should have been making, and when the kid gets out of school, whether they flunk out or graduate or whatever, then they're stuck with what the teachers have raised these children.
Well, there is also a catch-22 in there for the parent as well. I mean, it seems that, if you're not that involved in your child's welfare or education, then there's no guidance for that child. That child tends to be a little more disruptive and getting into trouble because they do what pleases them. They do what they think is right. Nobody's really instilled in them right or wrong. That's not the school's place to do that. That is the parent's place.
Right.
And so now if the parent is not engaged in their child's education, and now all of a sudden the child's in trouble, who's at fault? In the parent's mind, it's the system has failed because my child didn't learn. And who's ultimately getting the blame for it is the school system. But they're getting it because they've assumed that responsibility, and we're not pushing it back on the parent.
So the school can push the responsibility back on the parents that don't take that responsibility.
Well, either you do push it back, or the school is going to be holding parents accountable.
Well.
And that's not their place either.
The way it is operating, they're, you know, when the child is in school, however a child comes to school right now, as it is now, when a child comes to school, whatever he comes with or doesn't come with, that the teachers are required to teach that child from, if they have to teach things that haven't been taught and should have been taught, they do. Because they have got to, they are trying to get this child ready. I mean, if the child's not ready, they try to ready them.
The school does.
The school does. They don't push it back on the parent. I think that is an area where school board can, and frankly, I believe, should say what the standards are so that parents know what to expect long before they a child comes to school.
It makes sense. I mean, if you
Sure.
set
If
the
you know
rules,
if I as a
You
parent
set the
know,
expectation up front.
that's right. Then they've got time to act on it. Whether they can, you know, maybe they aren't the person who is going to do the day-to-day stuff that has to be done, but they will see to it, you know, that a caretaker or a babysitter or whatever is
other
teaching
resources available.
certain things or demanding certain behaviors early on, because that is going to be expected when they're 5 years old.
well, I've often said you need an adult in the room to say no when it should be no.
Exactly.
Or make the clear guidelines and enforce the guidelines.
That's right.
So, well, we're coming up to a break here. And, you know, one thing I wanted to get to when we come back from the break is that there's always seems to be, the city is asking for more money from the school, and yet our standards have got, not our standards, but our results have gotten worse and worse, it seems like, statewide anyway. So we'll take a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss how money may or may not help the problem. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be back after a short break, and we're here with Janice Williams, District 4 School Board, Carol Cooper, District 5, and we will solve all the problems of the Las Cruces school system. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
Welcome back, folks, to the Candidates Forum with Janice Williams, School Board District 4, and Carol Cooper, School Board District 5. They're running this November, so make sure you get out and vote, folks. I can't think of anything more important than how our schools are run and how our children are being taught. So, girls, I don't understand actually the financial end and how does the school request money, who pays for the money, but to me, it's if you keep asking for money and the schools don't improve in what they're putting out as far as our educated students, does money really help? And where does it come from? Who asked for it? What's going on? So, Carol, why don't you?
Well, if parents are not, and all of us, whatever our role is, if we don't fulfill our roles, if we don't play the part each of us is to play, then it doesn't matter how much money is on the scene. That is, we've had plenty of money for a while,
Okay.
But all of, for all the money that's been put toward education in New Mexico, we do not have better educated students.
No.
Compared to the other
correlation
states.
too with the scholastic aptitude tests. You can see the charts over the last 40 years in our state alone. And other states, we're not unique in this regard, but it seems the more money we throw at education, we are not seeing any improvement in
Wow.
scholastic aptitude. So you start to wonder, why do we keep needing more resources and more resources to keep throwing at whatever the issue is at the moment? And it seems more now that our issues are more community and society related than they are related to the school district themselves.
Yeah, education is it's really a one-on-one miracle that happens. That it is between two minds. Mm-hmm. Either it's coming, it might be from a book to a person, or a teacher, a live teacher,
or you and I,
right? We learn from each other.
Okay.
And so if education is not conveyed and received, that's the breakdown.
Right.
And the thing that is the greatest obstacle and that we're seeing today is that the receivers aren't ready for the information.
This is at the early stages, at entry level?
It really is. I mean, if it really is at any age. Okay. If you are not properly prepared for the next steps, then the next step it's not going to have the same effect as it would if you were prepared.
And it's a cycle. And the cycle is just repeating itself and repeating itself. And what do we determine on? We're at least in the third or fourth generation of where we have had lack of parental engagement and responsibility in a child's education, where they're focused on, my child's going to be a good person, they're going to have a future, they're going to be able to survive in their lifetime, and that's just not there. And so now we've got this whole switch where we've got, now the school's going to come in and we'll pick up the slack for what's missing here. We'll keep throwing more money at it. And now the more we throw on, the more the parents are getting disengaged from their child's life totally. And so now it just keeps perpetuating the cycle.
So the school system may be enabling the parents to back away and maybe make more money at another job or something, whatever it is. But I know when I was a young father, or maybe not so young father, that I thought the school had a better idea. But unless I was engaged, I wouldn't know. So it's so important. It's interesting.
And it's not just engaged with school, and teachers and teaching professionals, yes, but also really and truly engaged with your child. Conversation. I've heard again and again from kindergarten and first grade teachers that they see children who come to school who do not have language. Well, it isn't because they speak Spanish at home but don't speak English. No, they don't speak any language. And
they're just not talking.
They're not talking.
Oh.
Not talking at all.
That comes about because they are not spoken to and with.
Oh, so it's interaction between...
So it's interaction between parent and child. So
Okay.
not just interaction between parents and school professionals.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's that teaching that goes on before you get into grade school, is that hopefully we've taught our kids to learn right from wrong. Don't hit. That's a big one. Don't be a bully. Be nice to people. Be respectful. These are the lessons that we hope that these children learn, so that when they get into school, they learn to respect their teachers. They pay attention. They do what they're told. Yeah, it's a hard thing there, but you do what you're told when you're told to do it. Sit down when you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right.
And the teacher is not
basic.
having to spend time getting her class calmed down so that they can work.
Well, I'm a firm
Or,
believer in if there's a child that's disruptive, that child needs to be moved to another location so that the rest of the class can benefit from the teacher's abilities to teach.
And then we come to some more problems. Then we talk about money. Okay. All right. So in New Mexico, the ratio of students to teachers learning professionals or teaching professionals would say we shouldn't have more than 20 students in a classroom with one teacher.
Okay.
All right.
For the max benefit.
For the maximum benefit.
Okay.
And we have, 35 in the Las Cruces area is not so uncommon.
Okay.
And so that's not and if you've got if you have 35 children in a classroom, they better all be wearing halos.
Right.
Because that's a lot of people to deal with if they're unruly.
Yeah, and you just get that one
And you're
or
not-
even two that aren't following protocol, and then they get the other ones acting up.
So what do you do with those two? What do you do with those two?
This is like a common thing that happens.
But that requires more teachers. If you're going to have
Take them out of class, and you're going to have to be in another
but
class.
If you've got 35 kids in a classroom, that a lot of head scratching and praying
Bless
went
your
on
heart.
before that to make the decision. Okay, we're going to try it with 35 kids in the room. We don't have the teachers available. That's long story short.
Well, didn't we talk before that we're not getting teachers here because we're not offering competitive salaries?
Right.
Well, okay, then that's a good use of money, is paying good teachers to come in, but also downsize the size of the rooms, the school rooms, or the number of students per teacher.
Well, it allows you to have a better class
Sure.
student to teacher ratio.
Yeah, that's really looking at too. We as the school district, are we expending funds in areas that should be areas where parental responsibility should be absorbing those costs? For instance, I know we have a lot of impoverished families within our state and within our city, and I know that they have a lot of difficulty with children showing up for school that have not eaten, and so now we're spending the money to feed them. We're doing it here in the school system, instead of having these services available to where the families can get the help that they need so that this doesn't happen in the classroom.
I would think child services could be involved there. Now, not as a baseball bat to hit the parents with, but to
No, it's
identify
not
a
at
problem
all.
and solve it.
Yeah, is to help. The whole point here is to help the school district.
Right, sure.
Their focus here is supposed to be on teaching.
Right.
It is not on child rearing.
No, and not feeding children either.
Feeding, clothing.
I mean, yeah, I hear you.
You know.
Well, we're kind of winding down. I'd like to make a point that you two ladies come in on the show together because actually they seem to be a team right here. If our school board could work in totality as a team like these two ladies do, bouncing ideas back and forth, they're not exactly 100% with each other, but they talk to each other and they engage and come up with solutions. So this team...
We're learning from
There you
each
go.
other.
There you go. They're learning. So
Yeah.
this is what you want in a school board. You want people that interact, talk, and flesh out the problems and find solutions.
And children are the center of the conversation.
And they should be, absolutely.
Right.
Well, ladies, would you like to take a short, maybe a minute, and just talk to the viewers and just kind of anything that we didn't touch on today that you'd like to?
Yes, I would like to emphasize that all of the players in our Las Cruces schools, all of them have. I think they really care about the students, and I think that as a rule we are a pretty generous people, but we do have to do the job that we are best prepared to do, and parents are the closest to children, and so parents need to set that foundation. God created them, gave them their children, entrusted these children to us as parents, and so we need to do that job, and then the job of teaching our children skills that they will need in their adult lives can be easily taught, or much more easily taught by the teachers. And we have fine teachers in our community, and they are very caring teachers and well educated themselves, very capable of getting the job done. But having two jobs is not very effective.
Thank you, Carol. Very good. Janice, what would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to say, long before there were teachers and administrators and social workers, there were parents.
Yes.
And parents taught their children everything that they needed to learn to survive in
Bring
life.
up the next generation.
And bring up their next generation of parents. That's what we need to focus on, that is our parents do have a awesome role, a big role in their child's development and education. And we need to start it early, and they need to be mindful of it. And the school needs to be mindful that that's not necessarily their position. It's wonderful that we have the people that are willing to help, but if we keep helping and assuming responsibility that is not ours, it's just detrimental for the family as a whole and for the child.
And for
it's
the
not,
community.
and for the community. It's not
Everyone.
doing anybody any good.
Sure. Janice Williams, School Board District 4, Carol Cooper, School Board District 5. We'll see you next time.
I am Carol Lynn Cooper, and I approve this message.